She just told you that she needs space, and now your mind is scrambling to figure out what the right thing to do is. You think that if you give too much, she might be lost for good. And if you don't give enough, you might push her even further away. What you really want isn't just to survive this moment. You want the opportunity to reconnect with her, rebuild trust, and give your relationship a genuine chance instead of watching it slowly slip away. But here's the problem. Most men spend all of their energy trying to manage the distance, when distance usually isn't the real issue. In today's video, I'm going to show you why so many men accidentally solve the wrong problem when their wife or girlfriend asks for space. And stick with me until the end, because once you understand what she's actually asking for, you'll stop reacting from fear and start focusing on the one thing that gives you the best opportunity to reconnect. Obviously, some version of requesting for space is one of the most common things we hear taking place in relationships that are struggling. What is not so common is people in society understanding that men and women process relationship problems through completely different filters. And for the longest time, I would process it through my filter, thinking that she was supposed to be on the same wavelength as me because that is what would make a healthy relationship. Being on the same page together with the one goal to repair the relationship, so my filter would tell me to just be as logical as possible, and she would agree with that. I was in complete darkness to the fact that women process things in an entirely different way. I spent many unsuccessful and painful days in my life feeling frustrated and wondering if there was something seriously wrong with me in the relationship department because everything else was pretty good in my life. So with our filter as men, we tend to filter things through a very literal sense. If somebody says they need space, we filter that as hearing exactly those words. We think she needs space, distance, physical time apart, and then problem will be solved. If we give her that physical space, we think she will hopefully come to her senses during that time away, come back, and then we can pick up right where we left off trying to fix things logically with the relationship's best interest in mind. This is where things go haywire for us men. We generally have no idea that women are communicating the emotional experience they're having, not just the logical solution. So when she asks for space and we treat it as an instruction manual to just give it to her while we are waiting idly by, we miss that true meaning that she is actually describing what life has been feeling like emotionally. That misunderstanding becomes very costly since the actions you take during and after the space is given are already built on the wrong foundation. So if you're giving space and spending time doing what I used to do, which is start thinking in this almost strategic panic, like, okay, how much space? Should I check in? Should I call her? And I just kind of rack my brain trying to figure out which of these moves or what perfect recipe of each kind of action would trigger the connection for her with me again. What I learned after repeated disastrous endings to my relationships, including my ex-fiance breaking my heart and calling off our engagement, was that that approach does not work at all, and it is actually very, very misguided. Looking back, I wasn't actually asking the question that mattered. And the question you should be asking yourself right now is, what has the relationship actually been feeling like for her? If you spend your time thinking, being focused on the physical distance, the solutions you are going to create are all about managing the wrong problem. So if distance is a symptom, what is the right problem to focus on? Well, here's the perspective that completely changed my entire mindset around relationships, has made my relationship incredibly successful, and helped save the relationships of my coaching clients who have been in this position as well. If you think about an incredibly stressful week at work where you've just been kind of dealing with daily deadlines and meetings and all these little fires you have to put out, and by Friday you are gassed, Friday afternoon your coworker asks you how you're doing, and you tell them you need some space from this place ASAP. Does that mean you hate your job? Not necessarily, and I get it, maybe you do hate your job, but that is a whole other conversation for a different day. But if you actually like your job, or at the very least, don't hate it, what are you really communicating to your coworker? It's that you need Saturday to appear right now so you can get relief from the stress and demanding feeling that the job has given you all week. It's very similar in your relationship when she tells you she needs space. There's a very good chance she isn't rejecting you as a person, but she's rejecting to what the relationship has been feeling like internally for a period of time. What I see over and over again is guys focusing on the fear of her seeming distant and needing that space away from them, so they have done things that have slowly begun to make her feel the relationship being associated with pressure. That pressure to keep revisiting the same issues that are not really the real issues, and the big pressure she feels is to try and get her to manage your emotional reactions while you're feeling that disconnection and you start to become more and more panicked. I'm not saying all of this to point fingers at you or pile on and say it's all your fault, because quite honestly, it's like no fault insurance. She's not supposed to be responsible for your emotions and you being able to lead the relationship as the masculine presence. And we as men are taught and conditioned by so many aspects of society to basically give our leadership away, put it on her shoulders, and that we are just supposed to create the happy wife, happy life version of things, which is a load of nonsense. I can't stress how ridiculous the happy wife, happy life mindset is, and not because your wife isn't supposed to be happy, but I used to completely buy into it as well because I didn't know any better. And all of the things that that narrative pushes are making your relationship a destination of failure. I know for you right now, it feels like you're trying your best and you genuinely want to fix your relationship and make her happy. Your intentions are amazing, but intentions don't determine emotional experience. So clearly, if just giving her physical space isn't the whole answer, and you now see that a big part of why everything is happening in your relationship is because of the emotional experience she's been having, what type of space do you also have to give? You have to give her some emotional space. Simultaneously, you have to give this for yourself as well so you can refocus your emotions and intentions on growing in areas that will help you from this point forward and strengthen her attraction for you as well. So pay attention closely to this next part because this can make or break what happens to your relationship next. What does emotional space look like and what is she actually hoping to experience during this time? Well, emotional space is created by removing the emotional weight that has been sitting between you two. Think about the last time you've had a conversation that actually felt very easygoing. It doesn't have to have been with your wife, but anybody that you find very easy to converse with. Why did it feel easy to have that conversation? Most likely it's because there wasn't an agenda on the table. Nobody was trying to convince anybody or anything or secretly measure whether the conversation meant the relationship or friendship was improving. It was just a free-flowing conversation that had room to breathe and exist without carrying someone else's emotional burden. Now compare that to what many struggling marriages feel like, where you're feeling like things are collapsing and you really want to reconnect with your wife. It feels like every interaction is suddenly carrying this enormous meaning. When you are basing your hopefulness on how happy she sounds during a certain conversation, or going the other way and your entire day is ruined if you sense that she's being more distant, you may or may not realize it, but you've handed your emotional stability over to all of her responses. It is an entirely impossible position for her to be in where every interaction feels like it's a test that she never signed up for. This is why being able to learn how to be an emotional leader is so incredibly important, and honestly, what will determine the success of your reconciliation. The first step is understanding that you can no longer ask your wife, intentionally or not, to be responsible for regulating your emotional state. This is the first bit of pressure that you have to take away so that she can focus on processing just her own emotions without having to worry about all of yours. Now, that doesn't mean she suddenly comes running back. That's not how this works, as much as I wish it did. But what it does do is start to create what I mentioned earlier, which was giving her a different emotional experience of you. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know this is one of the core principles that I will hammer on over and over again, because this is a big part of where trust, curiosity, and emotional safety starts to rebuild. Rather than asking what we were talking about at the beginning, which is how much space should I give her, we need to turn the table and focus on who is she experiencing when she interacts with me. That question is the one that will move your relationship forward. And what will really propel it to a place where she is so connected with you and in a happy, long-lasting relationship is if you can focus on the following things. You have to shift your mindset to stop measuring progress by distance and measure it by the dynamic. Don't get caught up like most men who are, they're there counting the days. It's been 5 days. It's been 3 weeks. She hasn't reached out yet. I promise you the men who focus on that scoreboard are rarely successful in repairing their relationship and increasing her attraction for them again. I completely understand when your marriage feels like it's hanging by a thread, your brain's going to desperately want that certainty, but think of the actions that mindset makes you take and ask yourself if they have done anything to make things better to this point. I'm going to make a very calculated guess that your answer to that question is no, they have not. So the change in dynamic is what you have to focus on, which is really focusing on the following questions when you do interact with her going forward. Does she experience you as calmer than before? Are you less defensive and less reactive? Are you showing a comfortability or indifference to uncertainty? And are you listening to her because you genuinely want to understand or because you're waiting for your turn to convince her that she's wrong? These are some of the big things that actually change the emotional experience between the two of you. One thing you also have to make sure you are doing is not to try and get a report card from her to tell you how awesome you are and the changes you are doing and that she notices them. This is not going to help the dynamic between the two of you if you start asking her if she's really noticing your changes. If you're implementing the changes well and consistently, she's going to feel them. You asking her to notice or forcing her observation of those changes just starts to create the same pressure that we are trying to get away from in the first place. That is why I said one of the key pieces is to be okay with uncertainty and show an indifference about it. See, when you do this and actually live it, not try and fake it for her, it creates the space for her emotionally in a positive way to see you outside the lens of neediness and pressure. That is attractive. That is what starts to get her curious about you again. So there's one more perspective and component that you need to fully understand to bring this all together and put a bow on it so I can wrap this video up for you. The goal was never more space. The goal is to experience a different version of you that provides the leadership and emotional safety, which will allow her to re-engage her emotions in such a way she feels like your connection can be rebuilt even stronger. Your wife isn't going to reconnect because you successfully survived 30 days without texting her when she was at work. She's much more likely to reconnect with you when you create the polarity and show up as the leader deep down you know you can be. This cannot be faked or performed. It has to be lived. That's why I don't spend time teaching men gimmicks or some form of manipulation, because even if those things temporarily change behavior, they don't create long-lasting attraction. So if your wife has asked you for space and you feel very inundated with a whole bunch of information from all over YouTube or other places on the internet, I want to invite you to go watch my free Relationship Rebuild Masterclass that is linked in the description below. It shows you the actual path that works to cut through all the minutia and endless conflicting information that you can find everywhere. This is the path I created because I have lived it and I know what works and what doesn't. It's the same path I take my clients through to successfully save their marriages and relationships and start being the leader they have always wanted to be. If you want to see it for yourself, go watch the free masterclass today. If the masterclass resonates with you, you will have a chance to book a free strategy call to apply to work with me, where we will take your unique situation and apply this skill set to your own relationship to get your wife reconnected with you the fastest way possible. Now that you understand what she usually means when she says she needs space, the next question becomes, what should you actually do during that time? I made an entire video answering that question, so go watch that one right here next.